almost got you.
Is this the only bill you have in this committee?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll sit here.
Thanks. Were you waiting around for this?
Yeah. Just being a good bill.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Members, I'm presenting AB 2648. This bill, kind of a package from a couple weeks ago. I presented another bill in the Coastal Commission. This one more closely gets to the goal that I had in mind when starting this endeavor this year. The California Coastal Zone, as many of you probably know, is 840 miles of California coastline and 287 miles of shoreline around 9 offshore islands. The zone extends into the ocean as far as the state's jurisdiction goes. The inland boundary of the coastal zone can vary from a few hundred feet in urban areas and up to 5 miles in rural areas. In California, 15 counties and 61 cities are located in whole or in part in the coastal zone. There are significant lands close to the coast that have been exempted by the legislature from the coastal zone and are outside the jurisdiction of the Coastal Commission. I've heard it said many times that the Coastal Commission has the expertise to make the proper decisions regarding land use in the California Coastal Zone under the guidance of the California Coastal Act. I don't doubt for a moment that such a statement was true early on when California got serious about preserving our coast through the adoption of Proposition 20 in 1972, followed closely by the enactment of the California Coastal Act in 1976. But there is nothing in either of those documents that create nor require the Coastal Commission maintain a monopoly on the expertise in those areas. After some 40-plus years under the tutelage and guidance of the Coastal Commission, it only seems reasonable to believe that some, maybe even many of the local entities within the coastal zone lies have developed equivalent and maybe even perhaps superior expertise, knowledge, experience, and motivation as that of the Coastal Commission and its staff. AB 2648 is designed to assist the California Coastal Commission by lightening its workload. It creates a pathway for local governmental entities to establish in a court of law that it does have the requisite skill, knowledge, expertise, and experience to adequately enforce the California Coastal Act and regulate those portions of the coastal zone that lie within its jurisdiction. The decision would be made by the Superior Court judge, appealable just like all other judicial decisions. AB 2648 does not weaken the standards and requirements in the Coastal Act, including protecting public access to beaches and coastal sites along with maintaining visual coastal values. Those remain. Only those local entities that fully understand those standards and have the ability to properly enforce them will be granted the exclusive power to do so within their respective jurisdictions. AB 2648 is that simple. It presents a classic decision for us here in the legislature. If you believe that government decisions are best made by centralized government and that one size fits all, then vote no today on AB 2648. But if you believe, like I do, that government best serves the people when it is diffused with more power in the hands of local communities, then vote aye today on 2648. And I have one witness from the California Association of Realtors.
Good evening. My name is Yeli Gavrich. I'm with the California Association of Realtors, and we represent 111 years of organized real estate and community building. And we're here in support because we support locals in control of local planning and local land use decision making. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good afternoon, Chair Williams, members of the committee. Amy Trainier with the California Coastal Commission, Coastal Protection Network. Representing over 24 civil rights, environmental justice, coastal and environmental groups, representing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Californians in strong opposition to this bill. We think this bill would, in essence, gut the California Coastal Act, which was the people's law created by Prop 20 in 1972. We think it would thwart responsible coastal land use planning, sea level rise, and adaptation. We think there's a lot of reasons not to support it. Frankly, if something's not broken, I don't think we should be trying to fix it. Evidence of the California Coastal Commission's effective enforcement of the Coastal Act is undeniable. Our coast today today supports a $40+ billion economy, largely dependent on our free public access, which Californians, people from all over the country, and even internationally come to our amazing, pristine beaches, which is the bedrock of our California Coastal Act. So we think that this could open up the door to a race to the bottom mentality. It could lead to unplanned and uncoordinated development, to resource degradation, to not addressing planning and land use and resource protection at the same standard that we have seen under the California Coastal Act for the past 40 years. Additionally, by allowing a local jurisdiction to petition to get out of the federal agency coordination, that could jeopardize federal funds going to local and particularly to state jurisdictions. We certainly appreciate the desire to have more local control over coastal planning, but we think that is best achieved by better local coastal plan updates and achieving the policies which are strong, effective, support our $40 billion coastal economy under the Coastal Act. And for all of those reasons, I respectfully urge your no vote. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Marcela Gutierrez Graudinch with Azul. I'm a little bit nervous because this is really personal for me. I agree with what Amy just said and some of my other colleagues say, but when I see this, what I see is an opportunity to do a runaround on some of the protections that are afforded by the state. I could tell you that I am very appreciative and I welcome opportunities to evolve and better the Coastal Commission and how it applies the Coastal Act. But, when I see this, again, what comes to mind is Calaveras County. Now, if you're not familiar with this, just last month, not even 70 miles from here, the Calaveras County Planning Commission, a commissioner referred to Mexicans as invasive species in a public hearing. This is not, obviously Calaveras County is not a coastal county, but when I see this, I have to consider that there are public officials and commissioners a month ago that still felt no compunction and referring to myself, my family, my community as invasive species when they were actually considering updating their local draft plan. So you can see how this could be very, actually it's saddening, it's maddening. Not that this bill was proposed, but that there are situations like this that make us have to consider that this still happens in California. So I'm hoping respectfully that you will take into account how this will affect everybody and how things still happen at the local level that we may not be in accordance with, of course, but it still happens and we have to take it into consideration when we consider changes like this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. Sarah Christie with the California Coastal Commission. Not surprisingly, last week the Coastal Commission did vote unanimously to oppose this bill. And I think it's just important to note that the fundamental premise of the Coastal Act is that California's coastline is a resource of statewide importance and that its management is a question of statewide concern because developments that impact the coastal zone, if considered as part of a statewide geography, raise issues of greater than local concern. And so to address that statewide importance, the Coastal Act sets up a very unique dynamic of state and local partnership. And that's not just a word. That partnership is a very real relationship that the state, through the Coastal Commission, has with local governments. It's a relationship of mutual respect, and while local governments and the Coastal Commission don't always agree, the fact that it is a continuing relationship is what provides the incentive for the Coastal Commission and local governments to reach agreement and consensus on how best to manage those statewide resources. If this bill were to pass and that relationship were to end in this way, it would essentially turn the entire coastal management program on its head. The Commission retains a very important oversight function through the appeals jurisdiction once local governments have their certified local coastal plans. The local governments do take over permitting authority. They have jurisdiction over the vast majority of permits that come before them. It is a very small percentage of those permits that do get appealed to the Commission. But that very small percent is a very important percentage, and the Commission must maintain its ongoing role in having the ability to at least take a look at and discuss those local actions. So respectfully request your no vote on this bill.
Other witnesses in opposition?
Kelly Doan on behalf of California League and Conservation Voters in opposition.
Juan Altamirano, Audubon, California, in opposition.
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club, California, in opposition.
Jennifer Savage, Surfrider Foundation, in opposition.
To the committee, comments, questions? Mr. Stone? Mr. Hadley?
Thank you. Mr. Jones, I'm not going to support your bill today, but I do want the committee to know why, and it also reflects on a bill that was deliberated on this in this committee earlier today, Assemblywoman Burke's bill. Local interests have an important role in the governance of the Coastal Commission today, with the split governance between 6 locally appointed commissioners and 6 appointed by state legislative or executive officers. And one of the reasons that I didn't support Assemblywoman Burke's bill, I believe it was 2616, was that bill would have upset that balance and would have turned a majority vote on the commission over to appointees at the state level. So if we can, in that bill, if we can merge the author's desire for environmental justice representation on that board with a balanced control between local and state representation, then I'd be in a position to support that bill. Here, I do believe that our coast is a state resource. It's not strictly a local resource. And so I do think the proper jurisdiction is the Coastal Commission. That's why I'm not going to support this bill, but I am going to preserve the fair representation of local interests in the Coastal Commission. I do want to say one other thing. The second witness in opposition, I found, while I respected her passion, I found her comments to be inappropriate and in certain ways offensive. To find inappropriate comments in political life is not a hard thing. That is not an argument against local control. And I would also point out that this state has authority over its coastline as a beneficiary of a federal system with the federal government of the United States.
Mr. Stone.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Jones, you actually got your wish. Because let me explain how the Coastal Act works. It is a very unique, very special way that there's a very clear voter-driven statewide interest, and that is protecting certain aspects of coastal resources and protecting the coast, that actually gets implemented at the local level. And it does through the local coastal program that the Commission negotiates with the local jurisdiction, that LCP. That LCP then, the local jurisdiction's local coastal plan, becomes the standard of review for any development that is happening in that jurisdiction. Again, it's the local jurisdiction's standard of review, right? That's their plan. It becomes part of their planning document. The only time it gets appealed to the Commission is if the local jurisdiction exceeds its authority under the local coastal program, now, which means it violates its own program, or if in some other way it's violating the Coastal Act, then the Commission has jurisdiction. But if the local coastal plan is valid, even if there's an appeal to the Commission, the standard of review at the Commission remains the local coastal plan. So it's a very clever way of taking a clear statewide interest and implementing it at a local level with the locals setting their zoning, their general plan in place with the Coastal Act. So they do, in fact, implement the Coastal Act on a very local level. Now, to get them completely allow a coastal jurisdiction out of the Coastal Act is a direct frustration of Prop 20 and what the voters of California dictated, because they were very clear in stating that there is a coastal zone, and that was highly negotiated, and there are places where it's too wide and too thin. We can debate that, but it's been set. So, but within that local coastal zone, the expectation of the people of California is that there is protected a statewide interest. And the way the Coastal Act works vis-a-vis the state agency and the local agencies is one of cooperation, is one of partnership, because once it's handed to the local jurisdiction, that becomes a standard review. That's the standard at which development gets done. So the statewide agency has handed over to the local jurisdiction the ability to act on and issue permits there. So that's the way the system works. It's unique, probably unique in this country. It's a very effective system, and it allows, and having been a local elected with Coastal Zone, we were able to negotiate the local coastal program with the commission, and we were implementing those statewide standards at a local level under the supervision of the local coastal program, which again was our action as a local jurisdiction. So this bill's not necessary. This bill really doesn't understand or doesn't work well with what was handed down by the voters of the state of California, saying that this is a common interest. It's a common resource that belongs to all Californians. We want it available to anyone who comes here and be able to get the benefit from it. But it still gets implemented at the local level. So the locals have a tremendous amount of authority and voice, much more so than in really any other interaction with a state agency. So it's a unique and very, very good model. And so for that, I don't see how we can pass this bill, because it's completely antithetical to what the people of California wanted and set out in the Coastal Act.
Thank you.
For the reasons stated by both my colleagues, the chair's recommendation is no. Would you like to close?
Yeah, just first of all, thank you, Mr. Hadley, for responding to the second witness, because I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to, and you did very well. And I think I mean, the comments that were made by that commissioner in that public hearing, I would have been appalled by as well. I just didn't see the nexus to this presentation, so thank you for that. Also in response to one of the witnesses in opposition bill, if it's not broken, don't fix it. I don't have an opinion on whether the Coastal Commission is broken or not, but I know that, and as I stated in my previous bill, I started this process, long before the Coastal Commission came up in the media in the last several months. But there's been several media outlets and environmental organizations themselves that say the Coastal Commission has some challenges, and there are some improvements that can be made. Now, whether this bill speaks to that or not, I think it does. There may be some disagreement on that. On the comments gutting the Coastal Act, as I stated in my opening statement, that my bill does nothing to touch the Coastal Act or to do anything to undermine or gut the Coastal Act. The Coastal Act will still be intact and administered now by local jurisdictions that can show and prove that they have the ability and the expertise to do that. To some of the comments, regarding the local coastal plan, the statement was made that the only time that those decisions are appealed to the commission is when they exceed their jurisdiction or their approval from the Coastal Commission. And I think that I might be able to find some examples where, cases were appealed, I think on a frivolous level, just because it delayed the project, made it take longer and more expensive for the people that were trying to propose a particular project. My goal in presenting this bill is to streamline the process for local jurisdictions to protect the coast that is in their area, while respecting the development goals or redevelopment goals of the Act, and to apply those at the local level. So with that, I do ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Is there a motion? So moved. Motion by Harper, second by Mr. Hadley. Please call the roll.
The motion is due pass, and we refer to appropriations. Williams?
No.
Williams, no. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Garcia? Gomez?
No.
Gomez, no. Hadley?
No.
Hadley, no. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. Stone?
No.
Stone, no. Wood?
Mr. Chair, I forgot to mention in my close for Mr. Stone's edification that I have read the California Coastal Act, and I am trying to become as much of an expert as he is on the Coastal Act, so that maybe we can work together on some things.
Thank you for that hopeful note. I'd like to turn it over to you as I present the last bills of the evening.
All right, Mr. Chair. You're going to go in order, or do you have a...
Let's see. I'll start with the biomethane bill. I'm presenting AB 2585. It requires the Air Resources Board to review some of their resource shuffling requirements under the cap and trade regulations as they pertain to biomethane. As a result of uneven regulatory treatment, biomethane fuel purchasers are paying compliance costs under AB 32, even though it has the lowest carbon intensity of any commercially available fuel. And as the analysis notes, the bill is drafted broader than I intended, so I will take the committee amendments and can work on this moving forward. I respectfully ask for your...
You have a motion and a second. Witnesses in support?
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Ryan Kenney with Clean Energy Renewables. We are the nation's largest provider of natural gas transportation fuel. In the interest of time, we do support the bill. We do believe the bill intends to review the anti-shuffling requirements that we believe could be an undue burden on the industry that produces biomethane as a transportation fuel. We do urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Good evening. Julia Levin with the Bioenergy Association of California. We represent more than 50 public agencies, local governments, and private companies that are converting organic waste to energy. I want to thank the author and also the Air Board for coming together as a result of this legislation to try to resolve the problems that the bill is focused on that really are a barrier to in-state production of the lowest carbon transportation fuels, which are biofuels from organic waste. So we urge you to vote aye on this legislation.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Any other witnesses on either side of the issue? To the dais? Members? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Williams, would you like to close?
I just wanted to reiterate that we will, as suggested by the committee analysis, narrow the resource shuffling definition. And of course, what we hope is that this bill, in a matter of months, would not be necessary if the Air Resources Board and the parties can come together, in which case I would, of course, withdraw it and keep the committee members apprised. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. We can call the roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to Appropriations Committee. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones?
Aye.
Jones, aye. Garcia? Gomez? Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Harper?
Aye.
Harper, aye. Stone? Aye. Stone, aye. Wood?
5-0. I think that's out.
Thank you, members.
Good job on your bill.
Thank you. My last bill is AB 2139. It directs the Ocean Protection Council to facilitate research and prepare recommendations for public policy action to address ocean acidification by January 1st of 2018. As you probably are aware of, members, the ocean absorbs about a quarter of CO2 released into the atmosphere. But this absorption of CO2 levels do increase the acidification, the change in pH levels, and it has dramatic effects throughout the oceanic food chain. Of course, it is also related to runoff. And so this measure codifies ocean acidification as a priority for the legislature and the OPC.
We have a motion. Witnesses in support?
Good evening. My name is George Leonard. I'm Chief Scientist at Ocean Conservancy, and I'm here in strong support of AB 2139 this afternoon. I won't repeat the ocean acidification intro. These are all major issues, both globally and here in California. We appreciate the author's leadership on the bill. It is definitely the case that the state should move to adopt recommendations for further legislative action. We would encourage you to consider three key elements from the Ocean Acidification and Hypoxia panel that was recently released by the Ocean Protection Council and the Ocean Science Trust. One, expand science, research, and monitoring and in support of state decision-making. The second would be to address local factors, both land-based and ocean-based, that contribute to ocean acidification, and to consider revising criteria for coastal water health, including exploring the concept of ecologically relevant criteria to complement some of the existing chemical standards. We look forward to working with the author and the committee on the bill going forward. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support?
Thank you, Chair and members. Reed Addis on behalf of the California Coast Keepers Alliance, in support for the reasons stated by my colleague.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. I'm Brian Nowicki, Center for Biological Diversity. Also, my organization very enthusiastically in support of the bill. Just wanted to add on to what was said before by saying that the Center, and I think many of our allies, would not only be very supportive of this bill, but of moving forward as quickly as possible by potentially directing the State Water Resources Control Board to create new standards specific to ocean acidification as recommended by this panel to get started as quickly as possible to getting these protections in place. Thank you very much.
Other witnesses in support?
Kyle Jones with Sierra Club, California, in support.
Juan Altamirano, Audubon, California, in support. We look forward to working with the member's office.
Jennifer Savage, Surfrider Foundation, in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Not yet. We have a motion. We're looking for a second. Second by Mr. Wood. Any other witnesses? Any member comments, questions? Mr. Williams, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask your aye vote, and want to thank you all, both committee members and those few left in the audience, of bearing with the length of the committee hearing today. And there's pizza in my office as a reward if you're hungry.
You actually did quite well. I thought we were going to be here till 9 o'clock tonight, so very good. We can call the roll.
The motion is due pass and we refer to appropriations. Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye. Jones?
Not voting.
Jones not voting. Garcia? Gomez? Hadley?
Not voting.
Hadley not voting. Harper?
No.
Harper no. Stone?
Aye.
Stone aye. Wood? Wood aye.
3-2, so you're too short. I'll let you announce how long you're going to keep the roll open. I guess until you have 2 more votes.
Since it's my bill, 6 a.m. No. No, we won't. No, let's go through call the roll of the absent members. We will go through, I think, just about every bill. Well, the original plan was to have it back, so I was trying to figure out something to put it back there. But of course, in this building, you should usually ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yep.
Because permission never happens.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because then somebody's on the hook for giving you permission.
Okay, AB 1716, calling absent members. Wood? Wood aye.
I should announce the result for Mr. McCarty's staff. That is 6-0. That bill is out.
This one's already.
Doss, where's your office?
The urgency.
4005. This one's already out. Everybody's voted.
AB 1749 by Mathis. The urgency measure is added, and it is out.
AB 1833, Wood. Wood aye.
AB 1833 by Lender, 8-1. The bill is out.
AB 1937, Wood. Wood aye.
AB 1937 by Gomez, 6-2. The bill is out.
AB 2002, Wood? Wood, aye.
2002 by Stone, 7-2, the bill is out.
AB 2026, Wood? No. Wood, no.
AB 2026 by Hadley, the bill, it is 3-4, the bill fails. We will grant him reconsideration in his absence.
AB 2029.
John, what would be your?
AB 2029, all members voting.
AB 2029 by Dolly and Gordon is 9-0, the bill is out.
AB 2139, Garcia. AB 2139.
By Williams.
Garcia, aye. Gomez?
Courtesy
Gomez, aye.
5-1, the bill is out. Oh no, Wood didn't. You had him down, but he didn't.
Wood?
Yes. 5-1, the bill is out.
AB 2408. Wood? Yes. Wood, aye. I have a yes vote from you. Okay. 6-1.
6-1, that bill is out.
AB 2415, Wood? Wood, aye.
That's 2415 by Eduardo Garcia, 8-1, the bill is out.
AB 2534, all members voting.
2534 by Nazarian, 7-0, the bill is out.
AB 2564, all members voting.
By Cooper, 2564 by Cooper, 9-0, the bill is out.
AB 2585, Garcia. Garcia, aye. Gomez? Aye. Gomez, aye. Wood? Wood, aye.
8-0, the bill is out.
AB 2616, all members voting.
This is 2616 by Burke, 6-2, the bill is out.
AB 2648, Garcia. Correct.
By Jones. Jones. The chair's recommendation is no.
Garcia, no. Wood? No. Wood, no.
2-6, that bill fails. We will grant reconsideration.
AB 2702, Wood? Wood, aye.
This is 2702 by Atkins, 6-2, that bill is out.
Everybody's voted.
2722 by Burke, 6-3, the bill is out.
Everybody's voted.
2715 by Garcia, 8-0, the bill is out.
AB 2781, Wood? Wood, aye.
2781 by E. Garcia, that's 9-0, the bill is out. AB 2800 by Quirk, that's 7-2, the bill is out.
These are all the consent bills, unanimous.
And the consent bills are unanimous. With that, we will adjourn the meeting of the Assembly Natural Resources Committee.